the mic's going to work. Alrighty. So what are we learning? Fundamentals of programming. We know the course number. When do we meet? Well, not Monday, Wednesday, like I said. Tuesday, Thursday at 2 o'clock. We know that. Thankfully, everybody's here. Don't know that for a fact. I haven't taken attendance yet. In room 205. Alrighty. So, the delivery method is what's known as hybrid, lecture and online. Online just means that I post online material. Honestly, every program you take has online components, right? I mean, maybe not in an English course, but even then you're going to be writing stuff and uploading it. So, you know, I don't know how many courses you're taking that don't require you to get a hold, to log in D2L and stuff like that. And probably not in swimming or, you know. Anyways, so you need to have access to a computer to do the assignments and to use D2L. If you flat out don't have a computer at home, all you have is a phone and stuff like that, no problem. There's a computer, there's a business lab computer section right next door to us, which has all the software that you need. However, it's not as convenient for you to have to go on campus to do it, but some people do it that way. So free access to the computer is available to all enrolled students. In the Learning Resources Center, unfortunately, they may not have the tools there, so if you want to go to the LRC, the library, and use them there, that'd be great. But if you need the development tools, which you probably do, you need to come use that room. And that room's availability may be less than the LRC. I'm not sure it's available on weekends. I'll have to check on that. If you're unable to log into the campus network, use the phone number. The textbooks, that's our textbook you have to pay for. And then we have the one called How to Think Like a Computer Scientist, which is an online textbook. They both are online, really, aren't they? Required software. You will use a Python 3 language, which may be installed from python.org. We'll go there and look at it, but we're not going to install it on our machines, right? Oh, by the way, if you have a laptop, feel absolutely free to bring it to class and use it. That's a great idea because then you can go home and you can just keep working. One problem with these machines here is if you've stored a lot of data on your computer here, you've written a lot of programs, and then the computer crashes or the hard drive needs reformatting or whatever, you walk in the next time, all your stuff's gone. Yes, sir?
If I have a Mac, am I going to be able to do everything?
Absolutely. I have a Mac. Love Macs. Yep. So, yeah. Yo, bro, welcome to the Mac. So,
I like Mac.
absolutely we'll be able to do so. So, important dates. These need to be changed slightly to, 1 day pass for the exams. Don't stress about the exams. I'll talk about that later. The most important date here is spring break, right? We all need to know that. Okay, so, change that to Tuesday. Last day to withdraw. We're really coming up to the point where you can withdraw without a charge to your transcript, right? But I mean, to your account. But if you go through and you're failing or whatever, that shouldn't happen. I will, bend over backwards to help you, but it happens. Sometimes people need to bail. They got to move, or their job situation changes. They can't do school anymore. And then a final exam, which I'm sure the date has changed. I will nail that date down exactly because the dates of the finals sometimes don't match up with the days or times that you're here. Usually they do. So Macs work, Linux computers work. We have any Linux fans here? No problem if not. It's kind of more of a technical thing than most people want to do. We use D2L. We also make extensive use of this open book project, which I've already linked, called How to Think Like a Computer Scientist. Course objectives. We want to understand the fundamental concepts and general principles. I wonder what the difference between a concept and a principle is. I guess a principle is something you do, and a concept is something you understand. You follow your principles, but you understand concepts. Anyways, such as loops, decision statements, and input and output. Some of those terms are really familiar. We know what input is. It's when you type something into the computer. Output is what it displays, what it does. Yeah, nowadays, output can be on a screen like that. We're not going to learn how to program portable devices, but once you learn this stuff, you'll be well off. Understand and create flowcharts and pseudocode. There's those fancy words again. Write and run Python. This says script programs. You can kind of ignore the word script, but we'll differentiate between what a script and what a compiled program is as we go along. That performed a really short way to say it is that if you compile a program, you can give it to anybody and they'll be able to run it, like Excel. And you install Excel. You don't have to install something else in order to run Excel. Whereas if you give somebody a script, it requires some other software in order to run it. You may have heard of JavaScript. Well, you do have to install something in order for JavaScript to work. You don't know it, but you do. It requires your browser. It runs inside the browser. Similarly, our Python scripts run inside the Python program. So a script is something that runs inside another program. Grading scale is pretty typical. 90s an A, 80s a B, 70s a C, 60s a D. I am not a killer prof in terms of saying, okay, I'm going to curve it and I want this many people to fail and this many people to make a C, and I want to make a bell curve where more people make C's and only a few people make A's. I'm happy to give lots of A's. If you understand the material and you do the work, you're going to get a good grade in it. If I turn in a grade sheet where 70% of the class has A's, that's not a problem. If anybody ever asks me about it, which they don't, I'd say, okay, you look at their homework, you look at their exams, they understand this stuff, they rocked it, so they deserve the grade. That's the way that it goes for a large number of students. So the way the work is divvied up is there's programming homework, that's where you do it at home, like a business lab. In class assignments, I could call it tutorials. That's when I'm typing stuff up here and you follow along. If you have some difficulty in typing, not just slow typing, but like, I've had people, who, through illness or, birth conditions, can only type with one hand, or, they have shaky hands, Parkinson's disease or something like that, then let me know and we will need to work out what you're going to do on that. But, slow typing, I understand. Nobody takes typing courses in high school anymore on a manual typewriter or whatever. So it's very likely I type faster than most of y'all. Slow me down. Don't get behind and then 15 minutes later need me to come back. Just say, hey, slow down. The more you talk to me, even if it's to say things like that, the more I like you. Because if you don't understand something or you need me to slow down, somebody else does too. Probably half the class does. So anytime you don't understand a concept, ask me about it. Anytime I go too fast, ask me about it. If it turns out that you're having difficulty getting something that most of the class is picking up a little bit faster, that's not a problem, but I may ask that we meet after class on it. If we've already wound up talking about it for 15 minutes and 90% of the class has picked it up, we have to just manage our time appropriately. That's not usually the case, but sometimes people get stuck. Totally fine. That's why I have office hours. That's why I come in before or after if you need me. Submitting homework. Everything will be submitted using D2L. If you write a program, you'll upload the program file. That's most of what you're going to be doing in here because I don't assign essays, Grading policy. If you write a program, it actually has to be able to run in order to get credit. Well, what does that mean? Maybe you've heard the term syntax errors. I'm going to give you a real fast example of a program that has a syntax error. You don't need to follow along with me yet, although hopefully we'll have time to do this at the end of class. I'm going to type something. All right, two-line program. It is botched. It's not going to work. Why? Because that question mark's in the wrong place. It should have been inside the quotes. Now I'm going to run it. Looks good. You will make all sorts of typing mistakes and stuff like that. And at first it can be hard to see what is wrong. It's not like it makes it blatantly obvious. It does tell you what line number it's on, but we'll talk way more about that. But I'm just going to give you an example. You're going to want to make a directory on your desktop to store your programs. So I'm going to do that right now. We'll get back to that in a minute. I'm just going to make a little directory where I can store my stuff, and I'm going to call this one error. And you don't need to follow or understand what all this is yet. The text is too small, isn't it? I need to boom up the text size considerably for y'all to see it. Is that too small for the folks in the back? Feel free to say it is. It needs to go up, or we're good. Thumbs up if we're good. I'll increase it anytime you need it. So anyways, we're going to run it. Kind of hard to see? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't want you to have to bring in binoculars. So make it a little bit larger. All right. So there's a problem, like I said, question marks in the wrong place. Are computers that picky? Yeah, they actually are. So run module, and it says invalid syntax. And note that it actually highlights what's wrong. Sometimes it doesn't highlight the right thing. I'll give you an example of that. But the program didn't run. It didn't get me any output whatsoever. That means you never got the program to run and you didn't understand the lesson. All right, so let's make another mistake. Say I left off the quote. There was supposed to be a quote there. I forgot to put a quote there. And then it highlights all that. And you go, I don't really understand. I've got my dang parentheses there. I knew I needed to have one. Anyway, so learning to debug your syntax errors is what part of what you're going to be doing in here. If your program has syntax errors, you're not going to get a grade on it. Oh man, I failed the assignment and I may as well quit the course. No, it's not your final answer. If you make a mistake on it and you get a low grade on it for whatever reason, unless you cheat and I give you a low grade for that, that's a different topic, then I'll just say program didn't run, please correct and re-upload, and you'll get more credit. You'll pass the grade. You may even get a really good grade on it. So, but that doesn't mean that I want you to turn in something that doesn't work hoping to revise it later. I want you to really try hard to get it to work the first time. That's the way you're going to get the most credit for it. All programs have to run without syntax errors. All right, let's see what this looks like if I have corrected those syntax errors. Here it comes up. What is your age? 20. Your age is 20. All right, I am now an expert programmer. I'm going to go make $1 million. No, there's probably a little bit more to it than that. But it's a start. This is what's known as text-based programming. We're not moving sliders up and down or, selecting pull-down menus. Those are known as graphical user interfaces. And everything you do on a screen like that is usually done through a graphical user interface. Nowadays, people do, even, more sophisticated with their touch screens and stuff like that. But we're going to be learning text-based programming. Historically, the progress of computers was, you had to enter punch cards. And you got your output on a printed piece of paper. Maybe you've all seen those, continuous rolls of paper with little perforations down the side. Probably not anymore. But anyways, punch cards, blah, and then having a text-based monitor like in the old movies, Then came computers with graphical user interfaces. But the learning concepts you've got to go through. If you wanted to write the windowed applications with the pull-down menus and stuff like that, that is considerably more complex. So we got to follow the baby steps and then move our way up. And if we don't get to graphical user interfaces in this one, we do in the next class, which is scripting. Scripting is the sequel to this class. Enough babbling. Let's go back to partial credit may be awarded for assignments that do not meet full criteria for the assignment. Like what if I ask you to write a program that calculates somebody's age based on their birth date and then today's date. And so you enter your birth date, you enter today's date, and then it says you're 0 years old, no matter what. Well, if I look at the code and it looks like you were going in the right direction, you just didn't get to finish it, it did not meet the full criteria, it did not work properly, that's a different problem than not running at all. Not running at all, no credit. Well, 1 point. If it works, if it runs but doesn't do the right thing, you'll get some credit, but then you need to revise it to get more credit. I always want you to revise it. I don't want you just to accept a low grade on it. That's why I do that. I offer you the chance to revise it. So if you receive only partial credit due to the prior items, you may revise and resubmit it for more credit, usually. I will tell you in your feedback whether that's the case or not. And unless you got the low grade due to cheating, then yeah, it's going to be a given that I do. So programming assignments are due 1 week from the day they are assigned. If I assign a homework today, not planning on it, but I could have, then it would be due next Tuesday. Unless there are other considerations. I'm never going to make something due less than a week. Well, today's Tuesday. Yeah, you better have this done Thursday. I'm not going to do that. But what if it's during spring break? I'm not going to ask you, to do something in the middle of spring break. I try to leave that free so it really is a break. Similarly, I don't give an exam right after spring break, so you have to sweat studying the whole time. Anyways, the due dates will be posted very clearly. If you turn one in on time, you get a 5% grade bonus on it. Hey, that's kind of cool. If you turn in something and it works, you got 100 on it, instead you get 105. Those can kind of build up. One thing you need to note is some people think that they can come to class and then ace the exams. This is usually people who already understand programming to some extent, but not do the homework. They're too busy for it. Well, you're not going to pass the course unless you do at least half of the homework. You have to write 50% of the assignments that I assign you in order to pass. Now, that's usually not a problem. Almost everybody does. And yeah, the assignments get more complex as we go along, but as long as you're learning the material, you'll be able to do the easy ones as well as the complex ones. But if you don't do the programs at all, this is a hands-on class where it is an applied knowledge class, not just a theory one. So you have to do some of the homework in order to pass. Late assignments. If it's up to a week late, 10% off. 2 weeks late, 20%. 3 weeks late, 30% off. 4 weeks late, 40% off. No homework is accepted more than 4 weeks late. In-class assignments. The in-class ones, I understand if you miss a class, you're going to have to watch the video and do the in-class one on your own time. And, I'm not as harsh. Not that that's harsh, right? Some people don't accept late assignments. As long as you get it done within a month, you get full credit for it. Don't blow them off, though, because if you miss the in-class lectures, you're not going to know how to do the homework, and you're not going to be able to follow along the concepts. Get the in-class assignments due as quickly as possible. If, I've always considered maybe I should revise that so that you have to do it within 1 week of missing it. And by the way, I understand if there are reasons that you can't get stuff done or you need to miss class. What if you go on TDY? What if you're pregnant and you know that you're going to be missing a couple of weeks? Just talk to me about it in advance and we will work out something. Your work hours change so that, for the next 2 weeks, you're not going to be able to attend class. I hope that's not the case, but you could watch the lectures, that kind of thing. Penalties for late assignments might be waived at my discretion if you talk to me, preferably before the due date, about why you missed it. I don't like excuses after the due date, but if you talk to me about it beforehand, work is coming up, it's a killer work, On the other hand, if your kid is, gets sick and goes in a hospital like that, take care of your personal life and talk to me about it, and I will help with your schoolwork. So attendance, do I count off for attendance? No, I don't count off for attendance. The people who miss a lot of class tend to not do well, just so you wind up counting off yourself. Attendance will be taken at the beginning of class. Once roll has been taken, anybody showing up at that time after that time will be counted absent. If I'm handing out a roll sheet and you come in late and then you come up to the end of class and you manage to sign your name in before I walk out, you would be counted here. But as a general rule, students who attend classes and do not miss many days perform better in the course. So people get into the trap of thinking, they miss a day and then they watch the video and they think, hey, this is cool. I could skip all the classes and just watch the videos. What generally happens is you start skipping all the classes and then you stop watching the videos, seeing it over and over and over again. You may think you have the discipline to do that, but usually people start sliding in their grades and their performance if they start missing a lot of class. So, like I said, there are sometimes reasons you have to. Incompletes will only be granted for students who are already passing the course. Don't think that you cannot do the material and then change your grade to an incomplete. Instead, incompletes are only awarded for people who are passing the course before the point where they had to stop. AWs, absent withdrawals. This is a legal term. If you're not here for the first 2 weeks of a class, any class, not my class, this is not a rule that I made up, then you get then you get dropped from the course, and an AW is put on your transcript. What does that mean? That means that if you were getting money from somebody in order to do schoolwork, they're going to come back and they're going to get that money from you. So you don't want to do that. Back in the old days, people could get grants and they could go to a school and not even attend, and then they could enroll in another school and get a grant. You can't do that anymore. Those AWs kind of follow you around. So you are responsible. You're legally, required to pay, for the course, even if you just didn't attend it. I've had students do some strange things, like not show up for the first 3 weeks, and not talk to me, not turn anything in, and then get surprised when they're kicked out of the class. Well, that blows my mind that people have done that, but every once in a while you do that. So, or I see that. Just make sure in any class that you show up the first few weeks, 2 weeks for 16-week classes, 1 week for 8-week classes. If it's a shorter interim class than that, you probably better show up to every single one. Things I expect of you. You need to be responsible for having access to D2L. You never log on to D2L, right? And MindTab, that book site that you have to buy access to. You need to check. I don't use Evernote anymore, so I need to delete that. You need to check D2L updates. I think you get notification if I post something on D2L in the announcements page. I think it sends a note to you. We can test that out. I'll post another note, by the end of class, and you can tell me whether you got it in an email or not. Reading and using the required text. Why did you get a textbook if you're not going to read it? People always ask, is the textbook required? In this case, it is, because you're not going to be able to get online, and access that place if you don't. And I understand that textbooks can be expensive, but I've had people who had to be doing, tutorials from the text throughout the entire semester, and then 2 weeks before the semester ends, they say, I never bought the book, so I haven't been doing the work. Just go, I'm sorry you didn't buy the book. Turning in assignments on time. We've already talked about the consequences of that, but it's not just your grade that's at stake if you don't turn stuff in at time. It's your comprehension of it. And I do understand if you have trouble getting a concept. Just talk to me about it. Ask for help when needed. That's my expectation of you. Then there are expectations you can make of me. I better give clear instructions for assignments. If you can't understand the assignment, it means that I probably wrote it poorly. And it probably means that half the class didn't understand it. So feel free to say, hey, I did not understand the assignment. And by the way, this would be a really good time to mention that I really love texting with students. And they start to love texting with me because if you're writing a program and you're stuck, you can't get it to run, then you just take a picture of it. Take a picture of your screen and your code, text it to me, and unless I'm driving down the road or something like that, I'll look at it, and very, very quickly I will respond and say, oh, look at this line. You need to, put this comma here, or this is a logic. So I strongly, strongly, strongly ask, I'm not going to beg, I'm too proud to beg, right? But ask you to send me a text with your name and, just a second. Send me a text, grab your phone, and in it, the message, say 1113B, because we're the second class of the week, and your name. I don't care if it's just your first name, whatever. First and last if you like. And once the semester's done, I delete all your, your names. I never contact you about anything non-school related. So I'm just going to sit here and watch.
Is that an 8 right there?
Pardon me?
After the 405.
Yeah, why don't I move that cursor?
Oh, okay.
405-898-7767. All right, when I start hearing dings saying that I've gotten the messages, I will proceed. Yes, I'm holding our class hostage until I see some messages come in. All right, y'all have been saved. You've got some messages coming in. Thank you very much. Also, if bad weather comes up, you know that you can check the Rose website or whatever, but I will text you as well. I'll blast a text out to everybody saying, hey, bad weather, you know, tornado alert, class has been canceled, stuff like that. I'm not allowed to cancel class unless, you know, the campus cancels, you know, school. But on the other hand, you know what, if I get into a car wreck, my dying act will be to text you to say, you know, that no class today. I'm being slightly silly there. But you get the idea. If I know something that's going to impact class, I will text you. You are also free to text me and say, hey, you know, really bad weather out there. Are we holding class? And my general answer will be, unless the campus is closed, yes, we are holding class, but your safety is paramount. If you can't get here safely, then don't come. You know, if there's snow on the ground, even if campus hasn't been, you know, hey, you want to drive here, you're good in snow, that's great. If you have concerns and you don't feel safe coming to class, you're, you know, I don't want you to have a wreck just because your prof said that you had to attend that day. So, I need to provide clear instructions. I need to answer questions regarding the assignments. You can email, you can ask me in person, call me up, text me. I like text because I can respond on my own time and I can type stuff in, you know, take pictures of what I typed. You can type stuff in, take pictures of what you're working on, send it to me. Some students take advantage of that and I get a lot of communication with y'all. Y'all become my teacher's pet. Don't think that you're bothering me by asking me questions. You are not bothering me. I like you more and more as you communicate with me more and more. So grade assignments and feedback, I will give that to you. If you need to correct something, you will see that in the feedback. I need to give at least a week's notice of due assignments. I'll never say, okay, this has to be turned in tomorrow, this has to be due Thursday. And if I goof up and I don't put a due date on it at all, you can assume it was due a week from the day that it was assigned. But it's not really fair. So I'll usually extend the due date, you know, to the next, you know, class period if I mess up like that. And if I just think that we're stuck, if half the class missed the due date, I'll go, okay, well, maybe we needed to cover something else in class and I may roll the due date back. That doesn't mean that I want you all to conspire against me, you know. So, and I'll give 2 weeks notice of exams if the exam dates change. We have 2 exams, 2 midterms, and then a final. It's not like the final is a super duper comprehensive one, that, yeah, but it's just covers, you know, it's like 3 tests in a row, really. Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3. They all kind of build on each other, but they're not meant to be comprehensive. If I ask you to do something in the first exam, I'm probably not going to ask you the same question in the second exam. But it's like learning a language, right? You know, you got to learn how to do Spanish better and better and better in order to, you know, go through the class. I will post all notices, PowerPoints, reading assignments on D2L. All due dates will be shown clearly in D2L. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you're getting stuck, if you don't like the way that I'm teaching something, I've had a class, the first time I taught fundamentals, you know, about 6 years ago, I went too fast. Students got confused. Half the class was picking it up, but fully 50% of the class wasn't. And they communicated that to me, and so we did a reset. We did a reboot. You know, and we started, you know, not from scratch, but I started going a lot slower. If you don't communicate with me, yeah, I'll see grades, you know, but talk to me about it. Academic integrity. This could be summed up in one sentence. Don't cheat. All right, but we got to leave all that in here. What is cheating in a class like this? If you go home and you're working on homework and you don't know how to do something, but your spouse or your boyfriend, girlfriend is a master programmer and you ask them for help and they do it, that's bad. You got to do your own work. It's likely that I'm going to be able to tell because, you know, when somebody who's a skilled programmer does something, they will probably do it in a different fashion than you would have done. Don't ask for help like that. Ask me for help. I will talk about online access, you know, pulling stuff off the internet and turning it in a minute. Now, in class, when I'm giving tutorials, that's the exception. If I'm typing stuff up here, usually I will break and I will wander around and make sure that everybody's got their stuff working. However, when you have 24 students in a class, that can take a long time. If y'all will kind of buddy up and look at your other, you know, when you're done, if you see that they're stuck and you see why, and you forgot that quote, or you just need to tab that over. please go ahead. Feel free to work like that. On the other hand, if you don't want to, that's also totally cool. I can't make it a requirement. But the faster the class goes as a unit, the better. So feel free to buddy up. On the other hand, don't establish that as a working relationship to then go home and start sharing your programs with each other. Typically what happens is you get stuck. You will send somebody a Snapchat message saying, hey, I'm stuck. Could I see your program? I just need to see how you did it so I can fix mine. It turned out you didn't do it at all. So you take their thing and you upload it as yours. So the person who asked and the person who gave you their program will both be counted as cheating on that case. And you may think, well, I was tricked. I didn't know they were going to do that. It's really messy. Don't make people do their own work. Same is true for quizzes. Exams are not posted in the same way that quizzes are. If I post a quiz and it's not in class, it means you can do it on your own time. You don't have to be supervised to do it. That doesn't mean that two of you sit together side by side on the same computer trying to do the quiz at the same time. If you get an identical grade and you're putting in the identical wrong answers on the quiz, I get very suspicious and, bad things happen. So do the quizzes yourself. Again, both collaborators will be counted, If you get stuck, it's okay to Google. That's what real programmers do. Oh, I don't know how to open a file and write it out sequentially, blah, blah, blah. You Google and you see how to do it. Then you go and you modify your code. Don't just copy and paste what you saw on Google and put it in there. I've had that happen. I write an assignment, somebody goes and then they go find a solution that kind of does what I asked, kind of maybe sort of, and it looks like it was written by a PhD. And I'm gonna, no. I will probably be able to find out exactly where you copied it from, and then it becomes a problem. So Googling for information is great. Copying, it's just like writing a term paper or something like that. You got to credit your sources, and you're not allowed to copy a page out of a book and turn it in as your own writing. Don't do that. So that's plagiarism. It's when you use thoughts, ideas, words, phrases, or research of another person or source as your own without explicit or accurate credit. Now, if it's in your book, yeah, and it does exactly what I asked, yeah, you're going to take it out of the book, of course. What happens if you cheat? The least that will happen is you will get an F on the assignment. If it's on an exam, that could kill your grade. How do you cheat on an exam? Well, my exams are open book. So that's okay. You can use your book. You can use your notes. You can use PowerPoints. What you can't do is sit there with your phone asking somebody for help, maybe taking surreptitiously pictures like that. And I've had people do it. The reason I talk about these things is because I've had people do it. And it's annoying that it happens. So, I won't just say annoying. It's a real problem, because what will happen is you'll get an F on that assignment or exam. Also, you will be reported to the division dean. And he doesn't want to have to deal with this stuff any more than I do. And lastly, it will be sent to the director of student code of conduct. So why does all that happen? It used to be that, you'd work it out and you go, okay, hey Joe, this is just a first offense. I'm not going to tell anybody else. You go, okay. And then you do it in another class, and then you do it in another class, and then you do it in another class. And nowadays, all instances of it have to be reported, so that if you do it in more than one class, probably you'd be expelled from college. So you could fail the course as a result if that's the decision of the Board of Student Conduct. You could even be kicked out. Am I talking too much about it? Yeah, but don't do it. Now you've been adequately warned. Free personal counseling. I've had students who had PTSD, post-traumatic, they come back, from serving and they need help. Or, you're having problems in your private life. One example was when this student was attending classes in another college and they were assaulted by a teacher at the other college. And by assault, I mean that they were physically pushed against the wall. So that happened elsewhere. I helped them find the right resources here, and the right people here contacted the right people at that other college for it to be addressed with. But for any number of reasons, you're having emotional difficulties, you need to improve personal skills, you can get counseling. You can get counseling here. You don't have to pay $100 a visit with somebody. You need to deal with trauma or grief, decrease substance use, whatever. There's a URL there. You can call a phone number, get a confidential appointment. If you have disabilities, like I said, I've had people who couldn't type. If you have, ADHD, you're dyslexic, all of that stuff. If you need more time to take exams than most people because you read more slowly or whatever, all of that can be handled. Yes, sir.
The phone number up there, the 405 area code.
It should be. Everything in here you can assume is the 405 area code, but why should I make you assume? Very good point. You earned a bonus point today. Here we go. So, yeah, now you're excited. Okay, so if you have any concerns like that, if you have any needs, talking to me is great, but talking to the Office of Disability Services, well, that's not the new name, Student Access Services. And they'll help you fill out a form. You'll bring that to me and it says, hey, I need extra time, or I need to record the lectures. Well, good news is I record the lectures, but maybe you need to point a camera, and whatever. Whatever extra thing you need. I have even sat down with students and helped them take the exam, read the questions to them. So, whatever you need, just go and talk to them about it. They'll help you state what you need. It'll be communicated with me, and we'll work on it. There is something called the Student Success Center, which I don't really know much about. Helps students' personal growth, professional development, and academic process. I think it'd be really cool if one of y'all went and did that and then told me what it was about. So, I need to learn more about it, obviously. This is the first time that I've heard of it, so I put it in the syllabus. Additionally, we offer study skills workshops, learning style assessments, and other valuable tools. Conveniently housed in the Student Services Building, 8 to 5, and by appointment. Electronic communication. We may not have time to actually do that short programming assignment, which would disappoint me. Email. You need to be able to check your email. I've had students say that they can't check their email, and so they want me to use their home email address. I really can't do that. Yeah, if you send me email from a home email address, I'll probably respond to it. But when I send you feedback from D2L or something like that, all it lets me do is send to registered email addresses. So you need to be able to access your student email. It's really important. If you need help doing it, there are links here, or you can call the IT help desk. The bookstore. You want to visit the bookstore online? You can do that. I heard Ratcliffe's is closing, or maybe they've already closed. Anyways, the alternate bookstore down the street. That's too bad. Information about withdrawal, incomplete grades, auditing, stuff like that. Access to student handbook here. All right, looks like we're done. And hey, we have a little bit of time left. Are there any questions? Hopefully you were asking as we went along, but I know some people are shy about asking questions. Yes, sir.
I noticed when I went to look at the class and I went to the bookstore link to look in the book to buy, the ISBN there is different than the one that you see in the syllabus.
Okay, if I gave the wrong ISBN, that's a real drag. I need to fix that. Thank you very much.
Is that, yeah.
Do you have a book that we do need, that way I can see it and know what book to go buy in the bookstore?
Yep. You go to the bookstore and they have it divvied up by section number, and so you know what to get. But like I said, it's the online MindTap thing. So also I listed the book on the front page.
So we need both.
D2L. You don't need the physical book because they give it to you online. It's only for the people who like holding the paper, and I understand if you do. I like holding the Kindle. So, very good question. I didn't used to require that website, but other instructors are moving to it, so I'm joining Modern Era. Any other questions? Are we good? Not good? Don't be shy. And if you're getting behind and something's not working when we're typing in class, let me know, because if we go on for 30 minutes and I forget to do my walkabout and make sure everybody's doing okay, then you've sat there for 30 minutes not learning anything. That's not fair to you. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to launch a program, or excuse me, we're going to launch Python together. You could just type Python, but it doesn't work. That's not what we need. You need an editor. You saw me pop open that editor and I typed in some code. The name of that editor is IDLE, idle. Strange name for an editor, you know, I'm going to write my editor and call it lazy. No, the guy who invented Python was a fan of Monty Python's Flying Circus, and one of the principal actors in that troupe was named Eric Idle. So he chose the name Idle. You could have also chosen John Cleese, whatever. So kind of weird to be naming your programming language and tools after, you know, a comedy troupe, but whatever. He's smarter than I am. So type in idle in the search bar down here. And by the way, you will need to install Python on your computer home if you're going to be doing this stuff at home. I will make an assignment to do that and give you the URL for it, but you can always just go to python.org and install it. And I'm sure that that's listed in the syllabus and in the overview. I'll double check that, but it'll be listed in the, you may as well get the jump on it, right? So where was I going with that? You type in idle down here, it launches a little editor that looks like this, except it's not the editor. What you get is a shell. And there's a difference between an editor and a shell, and we will get into that more deeply. But when you're writing a program, you have to do this. You have to click File New. You just have to. Looks like you could type it here, but you can't. Unless you have absolutely perfect typing skills, and even then you can't save it and give it to me. So always, as soon as you launch Python, do File, New File. Right? That brings you to the editing screen. Now we're going to write a program. And at first you're just going to be typing in things that you see, you know, pretty much without understanding. Just like if you go to one of the Spanish classes and the teacher, you know, insists on speaking Spanish from beginning to end and you never hear any English, whatever. You will learn what all this stuff does. We are going to print a message. Please enter your age. Now, as I'm typing this stuff in, usually I will communicate the punctuation as well. Or I'll read off the whole line. Print, and I'm going to use things like, say, open parentheses. That parentheses is shift 9. And then I may say open quote. Well, if I say open quote, it just means a quote. Yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's an apostrophe or a double quote as long as you use them for the same, you know, use the same one on both sides. So that's an open parentheses. That's an open quote. I may not always say open quote. I'll probably just say quote. That's a closed quote. That's a closed parentheses, and they have to be matched. Right? And you have to, if you have one, you have to have the other, just like if you're writing a paper, if you have an open parentheses and you don't have a closed one. Okay, so now we're going to get their age. Age is equal to input, like that. And I will put extra spaces up here that you don't need. You don't have to have spaces around the equal sign. The only time you need spaces is, you know, between words, like that. I just do that to make it easy to read. All right, now let's save this. But I really want y'all to have a working directory. So what I did is I launched Windows Explorer or whatever by clicking the folder down there and going to the desktop. Do new folder and make yourself a folder. If you don't want to stick it in the desktop, you can stick it in documents or something like that. New folder. I already did this, but I click new folder and type in CIT 113. I'm going to get an error saying I already have that folder, but you know how to do it. And then once you're done with your new folder, go ahead and drag it to the favorites. And I know, you know, that most of y'all grew up with a Windows computer in your crib and know how to do all this stuff, but I'm going to walk through it anyways. So I'm going to grab the folder that I just created and put it over here in favorites by dragging it underneath recent places. That way I can always get to it really fast. And you'll see why we need that in a minute. Once you get your folder made, we're ready to save this program. Right now it says untitled. That's because it's never been saved. Just like, you know, you write a Word document, you know, you're writing a letter or something. So do a save as, back inside the editor, go to your new folder. Either go to desktop, you know, and find it from your desktop, or better yet, if you clicked it under favorites, then click favorites. And let's just give it a date, January 23. Now all Python files have an extension of .py, but you can leave that off, it will assume py. I'm going to go ahead and type it in. I'm just that kind of guy. jan23.py. If you want to name your program something else other than that, or if you want to create a different file structure or stuff like that, you want to save them on your USB drives. Speaking of which, it's a really good idea to back your stuff up onto a flash drive, a USB drive. Why? Because, like I said, if they replace a hard drive, you lose all your work. It's not being stored out on a network. It's just right there on your computer. Okay, so now we're done. This is a boring little program because all it does is ask a question and not do anything with that data. But that's okay. Baby steps. Let's click Run Module. And if you don't see that Run Module option on your screen, it means you're probably typing it into the shell rather than into a new file. Is that the case? Is anybody stuck and doesn't see the Run Module option? It's okay if you do. I had people in the last class yesterday. That's why I'm asking about it, because I didn't get told until the end of the class that that was the case. Okay, so I ran it. It says, please enter your age. I have a cursor where I can type. If I move my cursor to the wrong place, I'm not really sure that I'm going to be able to type well here, so I'm going to move it underneath that prompt if it hadn't already been there. All right, I'm old, 99. Great. Well, did it do anything? Not really. This, I'm going to close this shell now. It says shell. I'm going to close it just to get it out of the way. You can also minimize it, but I like closing it. We're going to do something with this data, right? I'm going to type in a couple more commands, and again, just take it on faith that this works, and by next week you'll understand it. And then I'm going to do a walkabout to make sure it's working for everybody. Age is equal to int, parentheses, age, like that. And I like putting lots of blank lines in my code to make it easy to see. You don't have to do that. That's what's known as white space. If age is less than 17, colon, not semicolon. And as soon as you do that, it tabs it over. You have to leave that tab. Tabs are very important in this language, not as important in other languages. But if that's the case, we're going to print a message. So if age less than 17, colon, then it has to be tabbed over. Print, let's print a message. Too young to enlist in the Air Force. End quote, end parentheses. Now when I go to the next line, I'm going to have to backspace because I want the next line to be lined up with that if statement. And this will all make more sense later. Else, colon, and it should tab you over again. And I'm only going to type in 2 more things before I do a walkabout and make sure that everybody's going okay. So print, parentheses, quote, great, talk to your recruiter. Now there's actually a bug in this program because I don't think you're allowed to enlist at the age of 17. That's a logic error. That's because I put 17 rather than 18 there. If we had more time, I wouldn't have mentioned that, and I would have run it and then asked us to debug it and stuff like that. But to fix it, I should make that an 18. But anyways, I'm going to run it again. I like saving my stuff every time I make a change, and I know the keyboard shortcut for saving, which is Control-S. But anyways, if you click Run and you haven't saved it, it's just going to ask you to save it. So Run Module. There we go. Please enter your age. I'm 99. Great. Talk to your recruiter. I'm not sure they allow 99-year-olds to enlist in the Air Force, so we probably ought to have better logic than that. But I'm going to run it one more time because when you always need to try to make your program both work and you need to figure out if you can make it fail. Programmers always write to try to make the program work, but then the users aren't. They will always find ways to make your program fail. So we're going to test it again and make sure that it says too young. So I'm going to run it again. Please enter your age, too young to enlist in the Air Force. Seems to be working, other than that 17-18 error. So I'm going to add one more print statement, and I'll show you why after. Print, parentheses, done. Hit enter. All right, so your program ought to run. If you have syntax errors, now's a good time to tell you about it.
Okay, so you're no longer in idle. Okay? Go back into idle. You'll see. Then we have to open it back up. File.
It's a shortcut to run it.
So the reason it's closing so fast is we need to have that.
But does it all?
I was gonna show you. But if you run it here, you will get some.
But I think I did.
And it says it out. Right.
Like I could never get on my
Yes.
What is the software? Because I opened the.
So.
It's not. Yeah. I just deleted
All right, guys. When I was reading this aloud, if you were following along with what I said rather than what I read, I said is, if age is less than. If you have the word is there, remove it. Yes, sir.
Well, it's just called untitled, that's okay, we should have given it a better name. But we can always do it.
My name is Brandon. What is your address?
You don't have to like save it. Yeah, save it to a zero every time. You can just quickly get off to press save as every time. Just press save just to see what's
Oh, guys, here I am talking a big talk. I didn't make this last line correct. Change that word input. Like that. And I'm going to mark that I had that one wrong. Don't have to type that. That's what's known as a comment. You can skip all the red stuff. I'm just putting it there to let you know what change I made. Why do that? So that if you run it by double-clicking on the file, which you ought to be able to do, if I didn't have that input statement there, it would close as soon as I type something. You wouldn't be able to see it. It would just close the program. Some of y'all are seeing that because you're running it by going into the folder. So that's what that last statement is for. And I will try to remember to do that because people always want to go and run it from the folder, but I don't always remember. All right, who else?
Whenever I type in H, I can only do it once.
Correct, correct. Is the program going to let you type in more ages? It would be great if it did, but once it gets here, the program is just flat out done. We would have to write what's known as a loop in order to make it do that. So you just close the shell and run it.
Okay, never mind.
That was your question?
Because I could do the one page, but the other
Right, right. So you would think that you could keep running it, right? But you actually have to write a loop to get it to work. All right, I'm going to go ahead and show people how to upload it, but if you're not done with it, that's okay. I just know that we've reached the end of the class period pretty much. So where do we go to upload this stuff? You got to go into D2L. And if you weren't able to log into D2L, don't panic. I'm going to give everybody credit for today. And then go enter our section. Like I said, you may have to scroll down a long way to find it. And then click Assignments. Once you click on Assignments, in Class A, first program, click on that. And a lot of y'all have used D2L and don't need this explanation, but some of y'all haven't. And then you click Add File. This is just like adding an attachment. You got to make sure you do all the steps, right? Because if you click Add Attachment, but you never click Send on your email, they don't get it. So add a file, then My Computer. You can drag and drop if you dig doing that. or you can click upload and go and find your folder. And I'm going to upload jan23.py into it. Now, just because I did that, it's not really uploaded. Just like I said, if you add an attachment but don't click send on your email, it doesn't get there. Then you got to click add, and then annoyingly, you got to click submit. It's like a three-step process, right? It's annoying. It's not until you see this screen that says file upload results, submission successful, that you've actually done it. Lots of people don't get quite that far, and then the next time they come in, they wonder why, you know, the file's not there. So, and I don't mind if you come in the next time and upload something you forgot to upload the last time, but like I said, your machine, you know, may get replaced without us being able to predict it. Okay, so once you're done, you'll see